Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is on the back of the OM-1 video that I did last month, which I actually filmed back in May in 2025, and since then I opted to get a OM system OM-3 because I wasn't convinced that I had tested the camera enough in order to make a final decision on what I was going to be doing with Micro Four Thirds in the future. So here's the camera here in all its glory. I've now had this for about a few weeks, and unfortunately I knew pretty much as soon as I got it that it was going to be disappointing based on my gut feeling I had when I had the OM-1, and I kind of wish that I didn't get this, but I think it has been important to get it, to finish the testing on it in terms of how good it is with my dog running towards the camera action testing, and then I can finally put this camera and future probably OM system cameras out of my mind. So don't get me wrong, I think for most people and for those without challenging, demanding subjects to photograph, certainly from an action running dog perspective, I think the OM-3 is a brilliant camera. And if you're not bothered about the full frame or the medium format look, and you just want an upgrade to your iPhone, which you can take in all weathers, then I think certainly the OM system cameras hit that mark. It just doesn't suit my photography at the present time. It's funny, I was actually shooting video with the OM-3 last month, basically saying goodbye to the Canon R8 because I was convinced that I was going to get rid of the Canon R8 first and then stick with the OM-3, but I've now done a complete U-turn and I'm actually filming this on the Canon R8 and I'm going to be setting on the OM-3. So why is that? So as I said, I've only had this camera for a few weeks, but obviously I had the OM-1 for a few months earlier in the year. But as I said, I virtually knew as soon as I had this camera that it wasn't going to be for me in terms of being able to deliver on that running dog action photography need that I need a camera to deliver on. And I should have trusted my gut feeling I had when I had the OM-1 in my hands. But as that one broke, I didn't feel like I had sufficient time with the OM-1 to completely write it off, and I wasn't sure whether the issue I had with it, like a broken joystick, whether that was causing any other issues with the camera. So that's why I felt like I had an itch to scratch with getting another OM system camera, and I opted for the OM-3 because it was supposed to have the benefits of the OM-1 Mark II, but just in a smaller, lighter body and without the bigger buffer. So I was quickly reminded when I went out shooting, like on dog walks with my dog in typical UK weather conditions, so dull and overcast, as to why I moved away from Micro Four Thirds in the first place. I just find even like this morning it was quite dull, but it was bright, it was light, the sun had come up, and just the fact that I was having to shoot quite a high shutter speed, and then the lowest aperture that I had, which was f2.8, and my ISO was still up to like 3200 and above, and I just feel that even with its stated improvements in noise handling compared to previous cameras, it's still pretty bad when you're comparing images from a crop sensor camera to those from a full frame camera like the Canon R8. I just feel that for me, in what I'm trying to achieve, I like the cleaner images that you get from full frame cameras, certainly when it comes to shooting action, and then also the ability for your subject to better stand away from its background, whereas I've really struggled with the Olympus and my f2.8 Pro zooms to get that subject separation looking as good as I can with like I can with the Canon R8. I think as well as full frame doing better in low light, high ISO conditions, I do find these days that I just think that when I look at a full frame image, I just feel that it's a bit more special than what I've always been able to achieve with Micro Four Thirds, and that's just the way I feel it at the moment. Again, like I said, I think suits a lot of people out there, and certainly with more reach because of the crop sensor camera, it suits a lot of wildlife photographers. But for action closer to home in lower light situations, I just find that the noise is just not to my liking. I could probably handle the noise if the autofocus performance was better than I was expecting, because obviously with modern software and denoise software, you can get quite clean results now, albeit it takes a bit of time, I find, certainly on my computer, to run the process through. But like I said, I've just found that the autofocus performance is not where I wanted it to be. And I think as well, it's even worse, the OM-3, for some reason, than the OM-1 that I had before it. Like, I think in a couple of runs before, I managed to get up to about a 50% hit rate with the OM-1. I've been struggling with the same settings. I've tried lots of different settings as well, and I just can't seem to get my hit rate above 40%. And then within a run, the focus is all over the place. There's no consistency to a burst either. You'll get some frames at the start, some in the middle, some at the end. You just can't predict. If something happens in a run, where your dog might jump or just look a bit surprised or just give you something that makes the image worthy of keeping over the other images in a run. I couldn't predict that the focus would fall at that point with the OM-3 because the hit rate is just so low, and ultimately it's just unreliable to use in those situations for me. On average, I would say that this is down at about 20% hit rate, which is much lower than I could achieve with the Sony A9 and then now the Canon R8. But don't get me wrong, the Canon R8 is not perfect, but I do find the images a little bit more special than those that I've been able to achieve from the Micro Four Thirds cameras. I think what's annoying, and it's the same behaviour that is on the OM-1, is when you're out in the field shooting with the OM-3 or the OM-1, the camera shows that it's detecting and tracking the subject all the way through the run. It doesn't jump around the box. You can see it quite clearly picking up the subject as it's moving through the scene, and that gives you a bit of a false hope, as it were, in terms of what you're actually going to get. And then, as I've said, the actual hit rate performance is way lower than what it detects. And that was the same whether I used the OM-1 or now the OM-3. And as I said, I think actually the OM-3 is worse. I don't know what they've done to the autofocus, whether they've better tuned it for birds, but for my dog, it's the performance, the hit rate performance just seems to be worse. As I said, in a typical run, you can see the focus drifting down the side of my dog. So even though it's showing it's detecting the head and the eyes in a run, the focus will be behind the eyes, it'll be on the back, it'll be on the tail. It's very rare that it actually does land squarely on the eyes. I think even if it landed on the front of the face, I would probably have a bit of a hope in having the eyes in focus as well. But it's just so inconsistent and just unreliable to use for my use case. So with the poor autofocus performance and the poor noise, I think those two factors alone mean that it's going to be the end of the road for Micro Four Thirds in terms of being my main camera system moving forward, which is disappointing, because I did seriously think it was going to be better than it has turned out to be. It's a real shame, because I do think I've been shooting Micro Four Thirds for 12, 13 years. It has done me pretty good up until now. It's just the fact that my needs have changed slightly and that I wanted to capture my dog running towards me more consistently and with a better look than what Micro Four Thirds has been able to give me. And like I said, the camera I think is the best designed Olympus camera that I've ever had. I think it's even better than the Pen F, because the Pen F obviously wasn't weather sealed, whereas this one is full weather sealed or IP53. Yeah, and I haven't got any problems with the handling of it either. You just adapt, you know, when you pick up any camera, your hand just naturally finds a comfortable position in which to handle it. And yeah, I've got no problems with the dials or the eyelets. It just feels really good in the hands, you know, and you can definitely tell that they've spent a bit of money on the actual build quality. It's a shame, probably like the back is still plastic, and the side, the battery door, and the other side with the ports, that's plastic as well. So it's a shame that they couldn't make it fully magnesium with just like plastic or rubber for the ports, but they get away with it because the rest of it does look pretty good, and more importantly as well, the base plate is magnesium as well, so there'll be no more problems with tripod mounts, hopefully. And it also has, like, obviously the main selling point of these cameras is that they've got computational features, ND filters, live GND filters. It's got the mono, the color profile dial on the front, but ultimately for me, I'm probably not going to be using any of those features. Like, I have tried it obviously when I got the OM-1 and when I've got the OM-3, but I just feel that they're a bit superfluous for what I shoot these days. Obviously I do quite like the live composite feature and the live time feature, but I still get that in my Olympus EM1, so if I need that functionality, then I can just revert to my older camera. I love the fact that it's got 5 custom modes. This is being a great implementation, so that's 5 for photo and 5 for video, and you can also rename them all as well. And then when you are scrolling through, it pops up briefly on the screen what that profile name is. And that was invaluable for when I was doing lots of different setting tweaks to see whether I could get the AF performance working better. And then equally you could have one for birds or dogs or people. And yeah, I think that's a really good feature, and it's partly one of the reasons I went for the OM-3 rather than the OM-1 Mark II, just because of that functionality. And likewise with the menu systems, I think this is the best like user interface that OM systems have come up with. It's great for wearing glasses as well with the EVF. Like, yes, okay, it's only 2.4 million dots, but in use, I didn't really think, oh my god, I wish I had a better quality EVF. I didn't really see any issues with that, and the eye point is sufficient enough, and you can magnify the screen inside the EVF as well, so that well, not magnify, but you can reduce the size of it, so when you are using glasses with the EVF, you can see all of the image that you're shooting, and I find that a great help when you're using the EVF with the camera. I was really hoping this was going to replace my Canon R8 and my Osmo Pocket, which I sold for video, because obviously it's got the fully articulating screen, and I've vlogged with it with video and with audio, and I've got no complaint. It is a good hybrid solution for most people out there. They've obviously had to change the function lever to make it a bit smaller, but I did find it a bit awkward to use. It's probably the only design compromise on this entire camera, as well as arguably probably some people would argue the grips being compromised as well. But as I said, you just find a natural position and then you just run with that. I don't really have an issue with that. But the function lever does take a little bit of time to get used to. I talked about them earlier, but the live time and the live composite features, it's quite handy now when you turn to the bulb mode on the dial, that those features are there. Like I said, I just think that it's a well-refined product, the OM-3 and the OM-1 Mark II. Now, probably even the OM-3 is better than the OM-1 Mark II in that regards, because like I said, you've got the 5 custom modes. Yeah, I think the design is really good on the OM-3. It's just a shame for me that the autofocus performance wasn't where I needed it to be. Another one on the design really, but all the dials are great. You know, there's some resistance there when you're using them, so you don't tend to knock them. Moving forward, I will still retain the Olympus EM1. I'll probably still retain the 12-40 Pro f2.8 lens, because it's a good one lens, does it all kind of arrangement, as well as some of the 4/3 lenses that I have, the 50mm f2 macro, which is great, and the 50-200 SWD lens, which is probably okay for some slow movement. If the camera did better, I probably would have got the 40-150 f2.8, but it just didn't give me enough confidence in that autofocus space that meant that I was happy spending some more money on a lens that probably wouldn't have got me a much better hit rate than I've been able to achieve with the 12 to 40 f2.8. So as I said, I'm still going to retain some of the Micro Four Thirds lenses and the EM1, because I do find that there is benefit with the Micro Four Thirds systems. It's easy to do macro, I feel, on a crop sensor camera, and then likewise as well I've got some flash gear as well for use with the Olympus gear. So certainly I'm not going to stop using the Micro Four Thirds cameras and lenses that I have, but then I have other cameras that fulfill other needs. So I've got the GFX for the medium format GFX for landscapes, anything that doesn't move. I've got the Ricoh GR3 and the GRD for like pocketable lightweight cameras when I just want to go light. I've got the Fujifilm X-E1 when I want to use some manual focus lenses. I've got Canon R8, which is my action camera at the moment. And of course I've got the Canon 5D as well, which does give some beautiful natural looking images. So what am I missing once I get rid of the OM-3? Well, like I said, I'm still not convinced with the Canon R8. I need to do some more testing with that to see whether I can get the autofocus performance better. It's more, again, that close-up space that I struggle with. And sometimes it works with the R8, sometimes it doesn't. I did find that the OM-3 did do a little bit better when Billy, my dog, was closer to the camera, but it still wasn't consistent enough for me to want to hold on to it. But as I said, I'm still struggling with the Canon R8 a little bit. I've tried a few EF lenses recently, which I've had to return because they've been faulty or the quality wasn't where I thought it was supposed to be. And that pretty much leaves me now with just the RF lenses, and I don't really want to spend the money on them just yet. So I was hoping, obviously, even though the Canon R8 has some degree of weather resistance, I don't think it's anywhere close to where OM system cameras are. So I was hoping, if I was keeping the OM-3, that would have been my camera to use in more inclement weather, but that's not going to be the case. So there is probably a little bit of a gap for a better event travel type camera when the weather's not so great. But that's why I'm hoping I'm going to do some more tests with my EM1 to see how well that does, just for things that move slowly. I think it does a reasonable job at the moment, and I probably just need to refine my techniques to get it working a little bit better and see whether that would do me for that particular need. Obviously I've no longer got the Osmo Pocket, so any camera that I do get, if I decide to get rid of the Canon R8, does need to do video as well, and it is so much easier with an articulating screen, so that does limit me. Like, I was going to try another Sony A9, but I don't think I will because it hasn't got a fully articulated screen. Likewise, I'm not even going to spend the money on the Nikon ZA, but that's only got a normal articulated screen as well. It hasn't got a fully articulated, it's just got a tilt up and down screen instead. So that's it for this video. It's definitely helped to cement my thoughts on where I want to go next, and that's not going to be with Micro Four Thirds. As always, thanks for watching. Bye for now.